This week on Filthy Hope,
we find it super easy to accept grace 2,000 years removed. So, like, we still read the Psalms, even though David was a bit of a piece of work in some areas of his life.
yes.
Just for one example. Whereas we can't handle grace in real time. So, like, we this is a full acknowledgement of we have taken part in this on this show in the past, looking at other Christians or even non-Christians in public spaces messing up.
Yeah.
And we've been pretty openly, like, pointing some of those things out. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the thing that's really deeply challenging is then showing grace. This podcast is a Uniting Heart and Soul production and was recorded on land that was stolen nearly 250 years ago. On this particular episode, we recorded on the land occupied by the Gadigal clan of the Eora Nation. We pay our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and we acknowledge that sovereignty over these lands was never ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. At Filthy Hope, we humbly contribute to the ancient and ongoing traditions of storytelling when we share stories on this podcast.
Jesus is Lord.
Hello and welcome to Filthy Hope. This is a podcast all about the grey spaces where Jesus, life and culture intersect. If it's your first time, welcome. My name is Jonty. I'm your host, and joining me as always is my co-host, Rev Ness.
Oh, Jonty.
So I'm not going to ask you how you're doing.
Not yet.
Because that is the crux of this episode.
Yep.
What we're going to be doing, and we'll be doing a handful of these over the next little while, is the plan. Really, until we get bored of doing them. I think this is a
Or
great...
to our listeners.
Yeah.
Let us know, because they let us know stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And the listeners are our focus group.
Totally.
It's not about what we want, it's what the listeners want. But we're going to be doing kind of the metaphor we've come up for this is a weather report.
Yes.
Where we are basically going to be checking in with each other on how we're doing in a bunch of different areas. We've got a bunch of different questions that so it won't be the same every time. At this point, my guess is probably every 20 episodes or so, we're going to just dip in and do a little check-in and share some stories about what's going on for us and that sort of thing.
And I think we need a theme song for it,
We
Jonty.
probably do, hey?
Yeah, and I've got it. I'm ready.
Yeah.
And I know we're not allowed to play it.
Okay.
So I figured I'd lend my vocal capabilities to this, which is
Great.
always scary.
Yeah.
Okay. 7, 8. It's raining men. Hallelujah, it's raining men. Ba-na-na. Hallelujah, it's raining men. Is enough? Amen.
I'm just going to let you roll.
I love that song. And last night, Jonty, on the news, I don't know if you saw it, but it's hilarious. These plumbers from Penrith have got together and they're doing all this grinding and singing to that very song to promote their plumbing business. And they're talking about, pipes, and they're doing all these rude actions with pipes and bum bits and bit of bum crack and the whole thing. And it was just the best. I'm thinking that plumbing business in Penrith is going to go off, literally, because it was just so inappropriate but so hilarious, and those dudes were just unreal. I'd book them for an act.
I've never even heard of this. I'm going to have to look this up.
It was great. Just last night, it was terrific. That's why I launched into it.
Yeah, great. My brother lives out in that direction. He rents, so he can't.
Know.
He won't need to. Hopefully, if he's a landlord, is a nice guy, but he shouldn't have to be paying for any of that stuff. But if he does need to, you know who to go to.
Yeah, definitely. You need to Google these dudes. They were just unreal. They've got brilliant.
All right, well, let's dive into some
weather check.
Some weather checking.
Okay, so now do some weather news music now, Jonty. Play the weather news music now. Okay, go. Great. Oh, Jonty. Now, we have the map of Jonty over to my right, and you know how the ladies do all that, they make love to their hands while they watch the weather. And
I don't know if that's the phrase, but go on.
Yes, they do this hand sex while they do that, and they play with their rings on their fingers, and then they point strategically to Goulburn, they point to wherever they are on the map. So now I'm doing the hand behaviour, and I'm pointing to you, Jonty, and I'm saying, Jonty, could you tell us how the weather is mentally, physically and spiritually for the Cornford?
The town of Cornford.
Yes.
I certainly can. I'll start physically, I guess. I'd say physically, signs of sunshine, probably slightly cloudy with sunshine starting to poke through.
Okay, can you give me a temperature?
Yeah, it's probably like today. It's probably pretty sunny.
Nice. So
but
18?
but about like an 18, 19 Celsius.
Nice. With a bit of cloud cover.
Yeah, a little bit of cloud cover.
Can you expand and tell us more why?
Yeah, definitely.
Why the cloud cover?
Well, so, I mean, to cut a long story short, injured my back a few times, but one time in particular when I was about like teenager, and have since then always had back issues, which has then affected obviously my ability to exercise as well, but also just general well-being. And the reason I say sunshine is because it's probably I would say it's the best it's been probably in the last, certainly since turning about 20.
That's great.
And it's a combination of finding the right professional. So I've been through physios, chiros, you name it. I feel like I've really found the right person that I now have the right relationship with in terms of like wellness.
Great.
To really start to get to the bottom of the issue, but start to actually target ways of really not just managing it, but actually fully repairing
so
it and getting back to...
strengthen and lengthen what you need.
Yeah, getting back to thriving as opposed to managing my back.
That is so good. So we're talking heat wave coming on, a 40 coming on in the next...
Fingers crossed. I mean, summer's around the corner,
Yeah.
so we're getting to time of recording. We're getting towards the end of winter, so time to get that summer body.
Nice. Young, hot husband.
That's right. Well, certainly not a husband yet. But yeah, like certainly at the moment it feels like, you know, I've been going to the gym, which I haven't done in years.
So good, Jonty.
Getting back to lots of cardio, lots of long walks. Like the other day, the local Coles is about an hour round trip from where I live. Mm-hmm. So at the moment I'm loving just like throwing on a podcast or an album and walking to the shops and back. Not to go to the shops, just to, you know, and it's been really sunny recently, and so just getting out and about in the sunshine. And,
do you find that helps your weather in regards to your mental health?
Big time. And the reason I like to answer all these, because part of the reason we're doing these questions, we do this sort of thing in my home group semi-regularly as well, and I love to... Well, I just feel like for me and for a lot of other people as well, that the answer to physically, mentally, spiritually are often linked. So for me... sleep has always been a big issue, and now like when exercise starts to become a more regular thing, then I feel like I start to sleep better, which then also means that I find exercise easier and more manageable,
and enjoyable.
Which then has a flow-on effect with my mental health. So, you know, I feel like mentally I've been in a pretty good place recently.
I can tell you are. You just seem really buoyant.
Less of a grumpy old bastard.
You're not a shithead to be with. You're really fun.
Yeah. And I feel like, and I've said this before to like close friends, is like, you know, it's the cycle of when I'm not sleeping, I put on weight and I'm grumpy.
Yeah.
But when I am sleeping, I'm a nice person.
You're always a nice person, but I know, because I work so closely with you, when you are sleep deprived or our work life and schedule requires you to be somewhere and you've had not enough sleep for a selection of days, I know that it's a struggle for you, and it's hard work.
Yeah.
For you, it's like a nightmare, and I don't see you be your 100% best, and you're just buoyant at the moment. I would say you're pulling a 36 in a cosy, mate. That's what I would say. It's beautiful weather.
With a rashy on, because I'm pasty as all hell.
And a ranger.
Yeah, exactly. You got to protect that skin. Look, name someone. I challenge anyone to name someone that's better at managing not getting sunburned than me.
Good.
It's probably another ranger, to be honest. But yeah. So I mean,
what about spiritually?
Spiritually, yeah.
What's the weather like there?
It's a good question. I feel like it's probably still plenty of sun at the moment. I think I'm in one of those places, and I've mentioned this before, is like when I start to get comfortable, that's when I start to go, something might be on the way. And I feel like I'm starting to get comfortable at the moment. Like I feel really content in, like I'm in a place where I know that I don't know very much, but I'm like super chill with that.
Wow. Look out for that. What I know in my experience is God usually does often can throw a meteor in space when that sort of, because he knows, okay, he's ready, open, willing to learn something new.
Yeah. Because I think this journey over the last 18 months of doing this podcast has really, I know I certainly found it really challenging at the beginning, and I still do, but it's the weekly practice of having these conversations I found really, really spiritually enriching.
Yeah, they're great.
And so I feel like I have built up almost this discipline of like listening in conversation with you and our guests, in like really tuning that ability not to open my mouth and play opinion tennis, but actually be able to sit and listen, and not listen in the way of like waiting for my chance to get in and say what I think, but actually just listening.
Wow.
And that's something, a real discipline that I still try and work on, but I feel like have been working on that for long enough that it's starting to really entrench itself. But the thing that I'm aware of now is like, having learnt that skill, and still it's something that I want to get better at, is God preparing me for a time where, from that base level of being able to listen well, maybe it's time to start using my voice more. Like I have that sense that something is around the corner.
That's a fantastic feeling. That's like anticipation.
Yeah, and
something.
You know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I'd be like, I need to know what it is. But like at the moment, I'm like, I'll figure it out when it turns up.
That's wonderful. And just being patient on the journey. And I've got to say, you talked about listening. You are an incredible listener. And I think, for you and I, because we have some really intimate conversations, that's why I feel so well heard, because you listen with an intention of being able to respond in such an articulate, empathetic way, because the nature of the things that we talk about at times are really tough.
And vulnerable.
Yeah, deeply. And you always have a beautiful word to say, Jonty. So, yeah, the weather's sunny there, brother.
I think
spiritually, did we say sunny or did I just make that up?
No, I think I said sunny. I think on that as well, something I'm really proud of, and I think you should be proud of as well, is the way that this space, this podcast, this community is safe. And we can see that the evidence of that is the number of guests that we've had on and given us the gift of their vulnerability.
Yep.
100%. And a space being safe in the way that, you know, some of the stories that we've heard on this podcast, people haven't felt safe enough to share those stories in church.
I had a woman just speak to me this week about, and we do knock these podcasts out and I move on to the next level of content and don't really think much about what you then go and edit and have to listen to a half a dozen times before it comes out to the listeners, right? So you've heard it more times than I do, because I do it and I leave it. It's your job to do the next piece.
Gosh, I'm jealous of that.
I have to push out Sunday morning, mate. Are you jealous of that? Yeah,
nope.
Right. He and this person said to me how grateful they were for the fact that I talked about intimacy alert right now. Intimacy alert, trigger warning. What I talked about and completely forgot that I talked about was in the podcast with my husband, Rob, and when we were sharing about our sex life and the intimacy and the issues that we were having while I was dealing with child sexual abuse. And I shared some really deep conversation and my own experience about sexual dysfunction during that time and what happens if I feel any sense of vaginal pain, what happens, or any discomfort, what happens for me emotionally. Well, this person reached out to me saying, and just launched straight into the conversation. So that was weird from a start, that this person knows all about those details about me, and I'd completely forgotten that everybody knows that has listened to the podcast. Yeah. So she launched straight in with the convo, and told me how much peace it gave her, and it helped normalise her thinking in and around those issues for herself, because she too has a story of abuse. And I went, wow, if my oversharing of that sort of detail of information has helped one person, then I'm just so grateful that's the impact, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Sunny day.
And I think that's, if I were to, I think something that I want Filthy Hope to be known for is it being a safe space to be vulnerable. I feel like that's really one of the things that I want to be almost like the calling card of what this podcast is and stands for, and the space that it's creating for our listeners is that. So
that's right. And that comes in the form of the conversation and the content of the topics that we discuss, the things that often you don't get to discuss in church.
Yeah.
Or even you don't get to discuss with often your closest friends.
Yeah. Well,
some of those,
big time.
some of the topics, even down to the language that we choose to use. Do you know what I mean? It is a safe space for anything goes.
Yeah.
And there's no judgment being passed here from this end.
That's right.
Plenty of judgment coming back on us though, Jonty.
Oh yeah, we might get to that.
Yeah.
but like,
still sunny days.
Sunny days. So, but what about you? Let's have a look at the map of Vanessa.
Yeah.
Vanessa
Can you
town.
do the actions and stuff?
Yeah,
If
you look just up to the top here, and just north of Newcastle, we have Vanessa Town.
Nessville Junction.
Nessville Junction, yeah. So, where physically, mentally, spiritually, wherever you'd like to start. But what's the outlook?
I'd say probably physically, I'd say cloudy with some sun breaking through. You know, that sort of image.
Yeah.
Because I've been to physio and I've got this mid-thoracic and scalene. The scalenes are the muscles in the neck that sort of hit under your first rib. So they're in the front of the neck. And it's making my body be a bit kyphotic, which means coming forward a little bit, which then puts pressure in my mid-thoracic spine. And so I've had lots of pain. And so I put up with it and I take Nurofen to deal with it. I think it'll go away. I'll keep doing Pilates and physio and, reformer Pilates and walking and all the things that I do. And it'll settle down. And then it doesn't settle down. And then I pushed myself out to physio yesterday, and he was able to manip and move and loosen up the areas and etc. And I feel a whole lot better. But he said to me, Ness, it's coming from your grinding, and the grinding comes from stress. And I don't know.
Grinding teeth.
Teeth, yeah. So, clenching.
Yeah.
So if you just clench your jaw right now, clench your jaw, can you imagine doing that for hours at a time? Then all those muscles in the front of the neck are in a tight contracted state for long periods of time. And so that means that I'm stressed in my sleep, physically stressed in my sleep. Now, I don't feel stressed in my sleep and I wake up like I've had a pretty good bloody sleep, but I'm clearly doing physical damage not only to my teeth but to my, turning these muscles on that need to be in deep rest. Oh, and I don't know what to do about it. And he says to me, the physio says to me, Vanessa, do you meditate? I say, yes. He said, hey, do you manage your mental health? Yes. I could tick all the things that he said. But you can't control what my jaw is going to do when I go to sleep at night, I said to him, I really don't want to have to go back on medication. I will if I have to, and I always say that, but I'd like to be able to kind of push through and see if I can do it without it. This time around anyway. I'm not ever saying never. So, physical, cloudy with a bit of breakthrough of sun because I know it'll get better.
Yep.
And I know what to do about it. And I understand what I've done. So that's okay.
Can I ask before you go to the next one, we had a previous episode you talked about your left ear and the Pilates movement that caused a bit of shriekiness. How's that?
It's totally normal.
Great, amazing.
Those crystals just go back into their position and I felt normal. Like a few days later, I was just completely like normal. I'm never going to do that movement pattern again. However, so I get into Pilates and the teachers go to teach that move and I really want to do it because I'm really bloody good at it now. Yeah. And she says to me, you're not doing it, are you sore, Vanessa? I said, no, I just don't want to get vertigo. I'm not doing that move, so I'll just do my bridging, babe. Don't worry about me.
Yep.
I think she thinks I'm a big chicken, but anyway. Yeah, no, that's okay.
Great.
No
Just
more
thought
vertigo.
I'd check in on that as well.
Thank you.
You talked about that before on the show, so I figured what better time to ask for a follow-up. What about spiritually and mentally?
Oh, spiritually, I've just had 3 days at this spiritual prayer retreat. Shout out to Carol Ranucci and Soul Life Ministry. It was absolutely phenom. And I met with a whole lot of female revs from all different denominations, and we met at a retreat at a home down in Kangaroo Valley. And Carol took us through these beautiful prayer practices. And you know how Jesus just retreated to the mountain or retreated across the lake and just took time out to fully restore and recover? I kind of go to these things kicking and screaming because I'm not going with any friends, although I know Carol, but she's a facilitator, so I can't be besties with her. I'm going to meet new people, and I'm tired usually at that point when I go to these things, but I always go and have a breakthrough. And I'm going to remind myself next time I do this that, don't worry, Ness, it's all going to be okay. And I had another breakthrough. It was just fabulous. I felt that I really engaged with the Spirit. Like you have 3 days where you're not thinking anything other than Jesus. So I'm in conversation with no other distractions other than what I'm going to eat next and where I'm going to walk to and the Bible and the prayer time that we're all having as a group. The rest of the time is just me and God. And it felt really outrageous. You know, if I could talk about it like a luxury good, it was like I was spending 3 days in a Rolls Royce or travelling first class on a private jet with a beautiful posh handbag. It was that beautiful. Do you know what I mean? Like it was, for me, it was just luxury to have the time just to spend with God.
Do you? I don't know if this question will make sense. Do you feel when you have that amount of time in that space? Yeah. Do you feel like guilty, or do you feel like you should be doing something else?
No, what I feel guilty about is that I don't do it often enough.
Right. Okay.
So it's this sense of it's a no-brainer. God tells us to do it. But when do you ever get 3 days to carve out to do that kind of thing? There's something about the 3-day thing. First day I do a bit of kicking and screaming, oh, really, really, really. And we have no phones and I've got no communication, so I can't text, I can't email, I can't ring my family.
That's really important.
There's no TV, there's no radio, there's nothing, Jonty, except the Bible, the facilitator, and a bunch of God chicks. Yeah. You know, it's like kind of a nightmare, really. And some sheep in a paddock and rain and cold and it was just sensational to spend time with God that way. And I felt, I got so many promptings by the Spirit. I got to ask God some big questions, and when we get to our a burning question for God that we'll talk about later, I can segue into a bit of that. But it just felt like if I had to give a weather alert on this spiritual piece for me, I would say it was like on Channel 7 weather, they just have, sunny, rainy, hail, snow, windy. Drizzle, windy. This was not on the chart. This was what I've described in my notes as space dust. So it's like a cataclysmic explosion of universal magnificence of creation. That's how it felt. I just felt like my whole body got sucked up and restored and revitalised and filled up my, we say, is your cup full? I'm telling you, brother, I was filled up with stardust and Jesus juice to overflowing. And that's a great place to be. Because then I came back, a beautiful member of my congregation died, and my mother-in-law died. So I'm really glad that I am full, because now I can go into that mourning period and preparation for those things full, not empty. There's a real lesson in that. We need to cross over and take time out. I'm not talking crossover like Twilight or Outlander. I mean crossover into, crossover the river like Jesus did, or the lake, to just spend time just with him. And I thought, I can't cut 3 days out of it's not something I can do regularly. I can maybe knock it out once a year or on a holiday. But on my days off, I need to just take even a couple of hours to just stop and do some prayer practice and be diligent to do the things that I did and just talk with God. He's hungry for the convo, FYI. And I realised that when I start the convo, I mean, I can talk, but I can listen. And he has a shit ton to say if you stop and listen.
So coming back from the retreat and coming into a pretty full-on week or so, what were the things, do you think, that you took from the retreat into this week that you may not have had otherwise? Like what about being on that retreat gave you that overflowingness you were saying, do you think, to be able to manage? Because anyone passing away is always sad, but especially someone, for context, a long-standing member of a congregation.
Oh, yeah.
And then also, if you're up for it, we can unpack a little bit about your mother-in-law. What was it that you took from that retreat that you may not have had otherwise that you think helped?
I think just a surety that my closeness with God is so close that all I need to do, I don't need 3 days to stop and check in. I can actually just do that anytime. I just need to be able to remember to do that. And I suppose it feels like, when you at Christmas time and you spend time with your family, you feel all loved up. You've had lovely food together and you've spent quality time together, and you leave and you come home and you go, oh, that was just such quality time, and you feel that loved feeling. I think I felt that, and I still feel it. I feel that I've had quality time with my Heavenly Father. I feel loved. I feel beloved. And I've got to re-see how he sees me. And that's pretty cool. Yeah. And he said some really cool stuff to me and assured me of some really great things and prompted me and gave me some images and visions of stuff that are dear and precious. Yeah, hence the stardust. I feel like it. If I breathe out, can you see the stardust? Watch, because I feel like it all just comes out. Do I sound like I need meds?
I can't see it.
Oh, but you could put it in the visual. It feels like it's spiritually in me. It's really nice. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
So yeah, good weather report.
Fantastic. Fantastic. What about the next one here we have is, what are the biggest challenges that we're facing at the moment?
You go first.
I'll go first. Okay.
Yeah.
This probably, a few. I'm just trying to sort through which one might be worth talking about. I think for a while, and as long as we've been doing this podcast, I always have this sense of being an imposter, which is very, very common, right? Imposter syndrome. I think, I as an empath, someone that it doesn't take me any time. I very easily can slip into someone's shoes and feel how they're feeling. That's always been to a sometimes unhelpful. I'm very easily swayed by how people feel. That's part of why I find confrontation really hard, is because when someone gets upset, I feel upset because they're upset.
Yeah.
It's like, vomit warning, listeners. It's like if you're a sympathetic vomiter, where just the sound or the seeing someone vomit gets you going.
Oh, like on a whale watching trip and everyone's having a spew.
Yeah, so I'm also a sympathetic vomiter. If I see or hear someone throwing up, it's very easily.
It's on.
So, but that's how I feel. I've always been emotionally. I very easily get affected by how other people feel. And I've talked about in the past how that's proved very challenging in quite heightened and high stakes situations where I've had to discipline other adults in positions of leadership and finding that really challenging because that person is really, really upset. I'm really upset.
Yeah.
And really, really finding it difficult to put in place that barrier between this is how I feel and this is how they feel, and not making decisions based on how that other person feels.
100%.
Really challenging. But in terms of this, I find it really challenging when I hear negative feedback. Not negative feedback, critical feedback about something that I'm doing in a way that says to me that they don't quite understand what it is I'm doing in the first place, or I'm not meeting an expectation that I'm not actually trying to meet anyway.
In the podcast?
Yeah, I think so.
It's tough.
And I've got pretty thick skin creatively, but I think when it comes to, I guess I find it challenging when people, especially when it comes to religious stuff, when people have the balls to challenge whether or not I'm a Christian. I find that really upsetting.
Yes.
When,
because
we'll see if I edit this out. I get paid. I don't do this for the money. I do this because I think it's worthwhile, and I do it because I feel at the moment like that is my calling, is to be present in this space and provide this space for people to talk about really challenging topics when they need to be talked about and they haven't been talked about in church spaces for ages. And for me, these are conversations that I wish I had access to in really formative moments in my life. And so, and I do that because I really do believe that the church has failed in some of these spaces, and I feel like I'm called to do this. And then when someone says, you can't say fuck, you really a Christian? Or you don't hold this particular doctrine, you're not a Christian. Stop calling yourself a Christian.
Yep.
I find that really challenging. And it's more of a challenge for me than it is for anyone that might have that comment or, post that somewhere. Because realistically, to me, that doesn't bother me on a purely surface level. It's more, it reflects on me. Oh, that does actually, that empath thing of like, oh, they're upset about something, so therefore I'm upset about it, but I shouldn't be upset about it. Yeah. That's an issue for them, not me. So it's probably a rambly way of coming around to it.
So when we cop a fair bit of hate, we get some troll hate about our language.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes. It's often when we've been really passionate about expressing our view, and as Christians, we do come under fire for being authentically honest and 100% real. And I suppose by being vulnerable and real, we set ourselves up for criticism.
Yes.
And
that's part of the deal.
It is, exactly. Well said. And I think all we can really do with that is not judge them back. We just pray that they pull the log out of their own eye.
Yep.
And that they could maybe take the time to get to know us, maybe a little bit better, before they start throwing stones. Yeah?
Yeah. Here's something that this probably says it more succinctly than I did before. I've been really challenged. I heard someone say on a podcast that like we find it super easy to accept grace 2,000 years removed. So, like, we still read the Psalms, even though David was a bit of a piece of work in some areas of his life.
Yes.
Just for one example. Whereas we can't handle grace in real time. So, like, we this is a full acknowledgement of we have taken part in this on this show in the past, looking at other Christians or even non-Christians in public spaces messing up.
Yeah.
And we've been pretty openly like pointing some of those things out. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the thing that's really deeply challenging is then showing grace.
Yeah. Doesn't mean we don't love people.
Yeah. But I found that really, I've felt quite convicted by that in terms of, we've just spoken about other people throwing stones without having looked at the log in their eye.
Yeah.
To then turn that around and go, have I been throwing stones? Have I been pointing out specks in people's eye when and
we did with Hillsong.
For sure, and that's just one example, and I find that really challenging.
We rockets, mate. We put logs or rockets. We did.
Yeah, and to take responsibility for that and acknowledge.
Well, it hurts the church, the big C church, when churches let down their community. And I think that's what we point out, and I think that's sad for all denominations. Not just for the Penty denomination, it's sad for the church all wide. When George Pell we went through the whole palaver with him and the pedophilia stuff. It hurts the church, not just the Roman Catholic Church, but all church. When, somebody in leadership falls from grace, will they be forgiven? That's between them and God, And
the challenge then is for us to show grace.
Yeah.
To follow the example.
Yeah.
I find that incredibly difficult, and I think I'm more and more aware of the hypocrisy in calling some of that stuff. I think it still needs to be called out. I think there are lessons to be learned, and not to call stuff out in the spirit of putting the person down, but to call it out in the spirit of let's all learn from the mistake. Nah,
a dead pet's a good pet. I'm leaving that one there. Sorry, Jonty. I'm sorry, I'm standing by that one.
So what's a challenge for you, Ness? I'm going to move on.
Yeah, okay. I think my biggest challenge right now is probably knowing what's next. A bit like you alluded to earlier on in this conversation, you were feeling that there's a level of comfort and you're just waiting with anticipation for what's next. I also have anticipation for what's next sitting under the surface. I've now been a congregational minister for a couple of years. I'm learning how to do my job. We're growing our community. We're, kicking some goals. Things feel stable and it feels comfortable. And I did ask God while I was away about some stuff. I sort of wanted to know, I had a couple of burning questions for God. Can I segue there?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
And it sort of feeds into my challenge, and that is being patient and waiting on the Lord. But because I had these 3 days, I was able to sort of sit in it and I had 3 days, so I was going to ask some really specifics. And I wanted to know, because I know I've talked about it before, but when God gave me the words corporate prison chaplaincy, shape, mould, 3 years, and then I went off and I went to uni and I studied theology, and then I went to seminary and kept jumping through all the different hoops, or so it felt, spiritual hoops that I needed to push open this ordination door, if that's where God was having me go. Before I did that, I sat in the shower and I sobbed to God, because I kind of knew that he was calling me into some leadership thing that I went kicking and screaming. But he gave me a vision, because I implored him. I was on the floor in the shower, sobbing, snot out the face, panda eyes, the whole thing. Lord, I need to see what that looks like before I can walk away from my corporate life and into a life that you want of me. And he said, yeah, I want to say that line, you can't handle the truth, Yeah. But he didn't say that. He said, sort of, I don't really want to show you, but I just said, please, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'll say yes if I need to see it. And he started the reel, like a movie reel. And it's almost like I could hear it clicking over in my ear. And I got to one frame. It was probably a couple of frames, but it was movement. And I saw it and I stopped it. I said, I can't do any more. That's enough. So it's really interesting. I haven't worried about that frame. I've talked about the frame, and I've shared with very few people what that frame is. But on this 3 days away, I did say to God, when when will I see the vision of what you gave me in those frames? When is that? He said, be patient. Know that I am the Lord. Oh, that doesn't help. Be patient and know that I am the Lord. Okay, so I sat in that and I just submitted to that, of course. What are you going to say? Can't have chuck a tantrum with the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, but I just sat in that and went, okay, that's the thing. But I know it's sitting there, but I feel like it's bubbling away, and I haven't felt that before. I felt like it's simmering to the top. And I haven't felt that the entire time I've been in ministry. I'm in my 8th year now.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, nor have I worried about it. I'm not worried about it. It's just come to my mind. Maybe God has actually prompted me to remind me of that. So maybe when that happens and I find myself in that moment, I'll remember.
I'm picturing, I don't know if this will resonate. I don't know if you've seen that movie Soul, Disney Pixar, came out during COVID. It's about like a jazz musician that wants to be a famous jazz musician. He has this image of like what it will look like to finally be have achieved the dream. And like an older musician says to him after he gets a gig, and he's like, and he's having these feelings of, I'm probably butchering this movie, but this is how I remember it. He's having these feelings of like, okay, this was fine, but like, when do I achieve the thing? And she tells a story of that this other musician tells him the story of like a fish that wants to reach the ocean.
Oh, wow.
And the fish's like, yeah, but when do I get to the ocean? This is just water.
Oh, wow.
It's like, without realizing that like,
you're already in the thing.
You're already doing the thing. And learning, like obviously like the goal is the thing that keeps you moving, right? I certainly have those things in life, the things that I feel like they will be the big achievements, right? But for me, I'm kind of like, and I've reached a few of those things definitely as life has gone on, and then you have that feeling of like, and so, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like recognizing recognizing water as the ocean, not just okay. Yeah, I'm in the water, but I can't wait to reach the ocean. Yeah. It's like in Nemo where we go off the drop.
Yeah,
you're already in it.
Yeah,
and so I don't know. Does this resonate in terms of like? I wonder.
Yeah, it does.
When you experience that thing that has been shared with you. How much of it will be, I did the thing in this one specific moment, or if it's in chasing the thing, in being obedient to the will of God, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, not bending the will of God to your will, but actually just allowing yourself to be an instrument to carry out God's will.
Yeah.
If the thing was actually the carrot that dragged you through all the other stuff, and all that stuff is just as important and incredible as reaching the quote unquote end goal, whatever that looks like.
I think the vision, there's nothing I can do to make that vision a thing. There's not anything that I can manufacture or make happen. It will either just happen, it'll just happen and it'll be a thing. And I wonder if it'll happen at a time when God knows I need it to happen, because it's not something I need. It's not, but it has me perplexed because he gave it to me. So would he just give me that for no reason?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it was the assurity that's with that assurity and the Holy Spirit prompting of that vision, I then have done what I've done to this point. Not because of it, but prompted by it.
Yeah, right.
It's so weird.
Let's definitely revisit this in another, let's keep checking in on that.
Far out. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's only just popped in, and I sort of prayed with him and I said, when When's it going to roll out? What's the deal? Can you just give me some warning so I can have my makeup right? Yeah. What about you? Have you got what's your current burning question for God?
I think at the moment I'm sort of poised at not a crossroads, that not quite the right illustration, but there are a number of options available to me. And I think I'm kind of going, which one?
Love that.
Which one? Because I'm people that are older than me are going to laugh at this, but I'm have been wrestling with the fact that I'm getting older.
Yeah.
And there's so much stuff that I want to do. And I don't, like, there's that element of like, I've got this opportunity. What if I spend 5 years down that road and then God shows up and goes, no, I actually want you doing this other thing?
Then you switch like I did.
Yeah, but in terms of like, in my brain, I'm like, well, it'd be so much easier if God just goes, here's where I want you to go.
Wouldn't it just?
Right.
This is great.
That's right. So I'm kind of going like, I've got this, blah, 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 blah. Can you please pick one for me?
Yeah, wow.
You know? Yeah, because I think there's this maybe irrational, I'm not sure if it's irrational or not, but this fear or this awareness of the fact that I've only got so many days and I don't want to waste them doing the wrong thing to then in retrospect go, oh, if at this age I'd made this decision, then I could have achieved all of these other things that would have been quote unquote more worthwhile, whatever that means.
Do you think God is just preparing you in this time and this place for the next thing?
I mean, probably, yeah.
I'd say 100%.
Yeah. It's just, I worry about that sometimes. Like, have I made the right decisions in terms of...
None of it's a waste, even if you perceive it's not the right decision. God doesn't waste any part of it. I know that. He'll use the sum of every piece of life experience that you have for whatever his purpose is for your life. All of those bits will come together and be threaded together for some awesomeness. And at the moment, you're doing awesomeness. You know, you're doing the most incredible ministry on the edges in producing, directing this podcast. You know, it's powerful stuff at 25. Is that how old you are?
Yeah, 25.
25. Quarter of a century, mate. Poor old bastard. And soon to be pastor, Jonty Cornford.
Yeah.
Like no small thing, brother.
Yeah. Well, and that was certainly one of those things in terms of like options in, you know, committing in deciding to commit to this as a ministry.
Yes.
And me being the pastor of essentially Filthy Hope Ministries is what it is, really.
That's what you are.
You know, that's a 2 to 5 year commitment.
Yep.
In my brain.
It's pretty good.
I can leave whenever I want.
Yeah, you can. You so can.
Yeah. But
and if God prompts you to do that, you do that.
That's right. But in terms of making the decision, it's okay, I've been doing it for 18 months or whatever.
Yeah.
Some of it part-time, some of it like it's led to this point. Now, time to make a decision. Do you think this is where God is calling you to spend the next 2 to 5 years of your life? I've decided, yes, I think it is. At the expense of some other things, for sure.
Except that, I want to challenge you on that. Many times in my life, I've juggled multiple careers. I've worked as a medical exercise specialist, an actor, as a university student, as a ministry agent, all at the same time. We are capable of doing multiple things. And I know you have, the problem with you is you're so bloody gifted and you have so much creativity. It's knowing where to channel your next creative venture.
Yes.
But the thing is,
I find that really hard.
Yeah, definitely. And you are committing to other projects outside Filthy Hope and driving that forward, and you are going to see the fruit of that, and you'll get huge fulfillment about doing that and completing those creative projects. I mean, essentially you're a writer and you're a musician and you're a Filthy Hope pastor. You wear a couple of hats, brother.
Yeah, for people that may not know, for context, I studied at university to be a writer. That's what I always thought that my career would be. So I guess, and we'll come back, I want to ask this of you as well, but in terms of the next question, what are you looking forward to? I'm going to do a really self-centered thing and ask myself, because this leads into what this conversation that we're having is, having put in place some more structured timelines and what's the word I'm looking for? Scheduling into my week around what I'm doing and when. I have at least one full quote unquote work day that I am dedicating to creative projects. So at the moment, that's right. There's 2 screenplays and a novel, and then a second novel that I've had outlined for 4 years and haven't had the time to write.
And this is all outside church. This is your own Jonty Cornford Creative Ministries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think, that's one. I over the last 5 years, 6, really as long as I've decided that as soon as I made the decision that I was going to go to university to study literature and be a writer, I've always had this burning thing of you don't spend enough time writing. You can't call yourself a writer if you don't write. So for me, what am I looking forward to is I'm already starting to see the fruits of write at least 2,500 words every Friday.
Fantastic.
If not every, there was the first novel that I wrote, which is one of the things that never been published. One of the things that I'm going to go back and am in the process of editing and redrafting and punching that up. I was writing 2,500 words a day.
Yeah, so good.
For a few months.
So good. Such a discipline.
Yeah, and it is a discipline. And so what I'm really looking forward to, A, the joy of being back in the water.
Yeah, great.
But also B, starting to see the fruit of that, and I get a little burst of dopamine every time I hit publish or schedule on a Filthy Hope clip or a podcast. Let me tell you, I finished a screenplay a couple of weeks ago. That's way too long, so it needs to be trimmed down. It's about 240 pages at the moment, which a page a minute in terms of screen time is sort of the rough. Goes? Yeah, so it's about 4 hours long.
Oh, a bit long.
But
maybe 2 parts.
Maybe, yeah.
Or could it be a 4-part series?
Is it a mini series? That's not a bad. That's one of the things I'm wrestling with. But
could I produce this for you?
Show me the money. But the payoff in terms of the amount of time that goes into making that to then going, that's done compared to a week's work on a podcast.
Yeah,
is I can't really it's one of the things that I chase as a creative person is the thrill of going, here is a complete body of work.
Yeah.
This is a 240 page screenplay that I'm incredibly proud of.
Yeah.
So I am looking forward to being able to do that more.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think the whole idea of scheduling, if you think about the creation narrative, Jonty, God rolls that out over 7 days, whatever that looks like. But if you think about how our week goes, God was really clear that he gave us some direction during the 7-day creation. I wonder if looking into the 7-day creation and lining that up with your week and how your week rolls could be quite helpful,
And certainly you talked about with your retreat.
Yeah.
This idea of Sabbath, which I want to dedicate a whole episode to talking about this idea of Sabbath is really, really important. And that's not just it's Sunday, so you go to church. That's not what Sabbath is.
No.
It's about from the beginning of
when you wake up.
Time.
That's right. Oh,
but in terms of all the way back to the Genesis narrative, which is, again, don't get me started. We'll probably unpack this at a later date, but
we can.
Regardless of how you read that story, from the beginning, God had built into creation a cycle that involves resting.
Yeah,
and not just taking a day off to go to church and then going back to doing retreats.
Yeah,
whether it's actually building in time to rest, and not rest in a perfunctory, I guess I'll do this, but also be sort of doing this social media stuff on the side. And
that's right.
Maybe talking to these people and doing something
mow
else.
the
No.
lawn, put a load of laundry on.
Like, stop.
Unpack the dishwasher.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on.
Yeah.
So to cut, and that's exactly right. The Sabbath is critical. My Sabbath is a Friday, and sometimes I'm able to carve out half of that to be just me and God on a walk, me and God singing, me and God just talking, praying, being, achieving zip. Other times I can't because other things encroach on that time. But Sabbath, you need to be intentional about taking that time. It's important for, back to our weather, our mental, physical and spiritual health.
Yeah.
It's critical. I mean, you can build in exercise on your Sabbath.
Of course.
And physical wellness is so important. And if you can commune with God and just shut down and be peaceful and calm while walking or exercising or swimming or whatever, then great.
Yeah. Many threads have just come up that I want to pull that I'm going to save for another episode for Sabbath. Because I think that's
let's do a whole
we live in a go culture.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that's a really important conversation to have. But what are you looking forward to? What have you got coming up on the horizon?
Jonty, I am going to Jerusalem. Hey. And I know, and I am so pumped. Rob and I have booked a archaeologist, historian, Jewish lady for a couple of days to actually just take us privately all the way to all the sites and all the places in Jerusalem. And she said, where do you want to go? And I gave her the list. And I started with, I want to go in the Lion's Gate, and that significance of that is where the Palm Sunday narrative started, and bam, let's go. And I've listed all the things, and she is so excited to take us, and I'm so excited to be able to have that experience and to come back and share it. I'll do some sneaky little videos while I'm away so we can share them when I come back. And she even said there's a section of the Wailing Wall that I can go for the women. Rob and I'll have to be separated, where I believe she said to me, you need to pre-write your prayer, and then she will take me to that place, and then I can shove my little prayer in the wall. Oh, King Solomon's Wall.
Yeah.
Mate, you could give me a prayer and I can shove it in. Yeah. Maybe if any of our listeners want me to shove in a prayer,
there we go.
Send it in to me, email me, and I can cut them out onto little bits of paper and roll them up and shove them in the wall. I'd be happy to do that for people. How cool would that be?
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know why they shove it in the wall. I don't even understand the significance of that.
Yeah, neither. Maybe we'll look into that.
Yeah, I'm going to do it though, because I think that's just a cool thing to do. Yeah, so that's what I'm most looking forward to at the moment. That's my, some annual leave, and doing that. It's going to be really special. And that whole Jesus thing, it's going to be, I can't wait to go where they believe Pentecost happened. I'm going to stand there. I'm going to breathe it in. I'm going to pray that the Spirit just moves me in that moment myself, and I come back with a bunch of great stories to tell.
I cannot wait to hear the stories that you bring back.
It's going to be cool. What about you? What are you most looking forward to?
Well, I mean, so I talked about the hopefully seeing some projects come to completion, because, my partner constantly says, you're always working on something, you never finish anything, which is, I love getting called out with that. So, we've got some music coming out, a few of those sorts of things, but like really getting some long form projects, whether it's some short films or some screenplays or some like publishing a novel is one of my...
Just a small thing.
Yeah.
Would you ghostwrite my story, Jonty?
Again, show me the money. No. Yeah, I'd do that. That'd be cool.
You're so funny. You're so badass.
Well, we might leave it there. We've been going for just about an hour. I think that's a good place to stop. Thank you for sharing the weather report. Yeah,
the weather's good. I think overall, the ultimate weather in Jonty Land is quite sunny.
Pretty sunny at the moment, yeah.
And Nessville Junction is looking pretty frickin' 28.
Pretty sunny as well,
yeah. Pretty good, mate.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, I mean, listeners, people watching, let us know if you want more of these sorts of episodes. I think I just had this real feeling that we talk a lot about external stuff and we talk about guests and topic. Like, I thought it would be cool for us to do some more reflective, inward-looking stuff. So, yeah, we'll probably come back and do one of these every once in a while. And I think we should
interview Carol Ranucci, have her on to talk about retreats and prayer retreats and the things that she offers, because she's got some great insight.
Yeah, for sure. And as well, with you heading over to Jerusalem, I really want to say who, but there are some cool guests that we've got lined up for in the meantime while you will be overseas, which I'm
jealous.
As soon as I've got those recorded, so I know that they're coming out, I can say who that is. And I'm very excited by some of them. An international guest. We certainly do, which I can't wait to share with you guys. I guess if I were to wrap this up, I've been trying to think about what we hadn't even talked about how we were going to answer these questions, but in listening to our responses, two things that I thought would be great for our listeners to ponder as a result of, or in response to this episode would be like, and something that I love doing and certainly in my home group we do a lot is normalizing the language around asking what God is doing in your life. I challenge people listening or watching, close friend, someone you go to church with, whoever, parents, siblings, don't be afraid to ask, what's God doing in your life? I think that's a really powerful question. But also, ask questions of God. If you want God to show up, ask. I think that's a really powerful thing to do. So yeah, let's wrap it there. We'll see you next week. Feel free to get in touch, filthyhopepod@gmail.com or find us on Instagram. I'm Jonty.
I'm Ness.
This is Filthy Hope. See you next week.
This is a prayer for the people who want to give up, who have been hurt beyond repair and cannot bear to see